What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, we are one day away from their preseason finale up in Detroit. Plenty to talk about, including the quarterback competition, who needs to impress against the Lions. And well, as we sit here today, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers have some new emerging but old foes in the Brandon Aiyuk saga as we continue to wait out and see what's going to happen with the all-pro wide receiver and the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll dive into that. Plus, as we do every day, we will answer all of your questions. So make sure that you're tossing them in the chat. Nick, it's an early one. It's been a while since we've been on at 9 a.m. We think this is going to be the process moving forward. We're going to go 9 a.m. on Mondays and Fridays. That allows us to travel to and from games without any issues, without missing any streams. And then we'll go afternoon, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But, I think we got to get back into gear here. How you feeling, my friend?
Yeah, it is an adjustment. I told you I just let the light into my room for the first time all day. I've been up working. We have a couple things down the pipeline that we're working on for All Steelers Talk, but letting that light in and saying, okay, well, now we got to turn it on. That's it's something we haven't done for a couple of weeks. So it's going to take me a second to get going, but should be good.
Yeah. We'll get there. Like everybody else, we got to be human at 9 a.m. and we're ready to bring the best. So we appreciate everybody who's jumping on the early morning live streams, as we do the people who are jumping on the afternoon live streams. Let's dive into it. Let's start with the Brandon Aiyuk update, because that's obviously the biggest news that the Pittsburgh Steelers have surrounding them right now. The quarterback competition, Brandon Aiyuk, 1A, 1B, depends on what order you put him in. NFL insider Mike Silver believes that as of yesterday, with the Jahan Dotson to the Philadelphia Eagles trade, the Washington Commanders are now back in the race for Aiyuk. Quote, I wouldn't rule out Washington. I know that there have been reports that the Commanders are out, but they just traded a wide receiver. Adam Peters and John Lynch obviously can communicate very easily on this. That's the other team besides the Steelers that Aiyuk has honed in on as where he wants to go. He later said, according to his reports, it is quote unquote not dead that the Washington Commanders can still be in this race. There is a lot of speculation about whether or not they made the move of Jahan Dotson to create a space for Brandon Aiyuk and add that third-round pick so that they can go boost their trade offer to the San Francisco 49ers. The biggest question that comes from that is, should the Pittsburgh Steelers care? And if the Washington Commanders are driving this price up and continuing to push, how long do the Steelers stick around before you simply look at it and say, okay, we've tried. This has been great. It's been a lot of fun. We've made a lot of friends. It's all about the journey. The journey needs to come to an end, because at this point, this is getting a little bit ridiculous. And we're hitting a point where even without the Washington Commanders, this is getting a little bit ridiculous. So maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers should acknowledge that if the price continues to go up, if the Washington Commanders are only going to make this more difficult on them moving forward, maybe it's time to pull out and say, we've done what we could. There are other options. There will be even more options in the coming days. It's time to change course and readjust if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. I wouldn't chalk it up as a loss if that's what they choose to do. And quite frankly, I don't think that it's just as easy as, okay, we're done, Washington's in this. But if Washington steps in and, say, offers a second and a third and a little bit more, and their offer is better than Pittsburgh's, and Brandon Aiyuk says, yeah, cool, I'm cool with going there, that's totally fine. And now the Steelers are faced with, we either have to up our offer or we have to move on. I think you move on. I don't think that you up the offer past what it is. To be quite frank, a second and a third round pick is as good as I'm willing to go. And I think that you could justify a second and a third round pick for Brandon Aiyuk. And I think it works out very well for the Steelers. Once you start adding more, second and a second and a third and a third, a second and a third and a fourth, at some point you're digging yourself a hole, to the point where if you need offensive linemen, if you need defensive linemen, if you need another wide receiver, if you need a running back, if you need a linebacker, if you need a corner, if something happens at quarterback, you have no idea. You only have a first-round pick and then a bunch of late-round picks next year. You're in a predicament, and one that the Steelers should not try to find themselves in, because, yes, Brandon Aiyuk is a great talent, but wide receivers have never won a team a Super Bowl, and they never will win a team a Super Bowl. And they could certainly help, but the quarterback position's more important. A defense in Pittsburgh is more important. Adding a corner or an offensive lineman so that you could work in an offense that is run heavy is more important. And there are better positions, bigger positions that you're going to have to fill in a year to where, yeah, you could justify a second and a third, and it's not the greatest, but it allows you to do something. The more you spread this out, the more of a hit you're taking. I'm just not in on the continue to push for Brandon Aiyuk if other teams are going to drive the price up. I don't know. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel different? If it's me and the Washington Commanders come in here and they say, hey, this is our asking price, or this is our offer, it's better than Pittsburgh's, and I'm the Steelers, I'm saying, yeah, that's cool, man. If you want to go to Washington, if you want to make a deal with Washington, sounds good. We're where we're at. We're not going to change.
Yeah, obviously, the more teams that get in this, the higher the price goes, the bigger the gamble is. I mean, it's already a pretty big gamble trading away multiple decent picks for a wide receiver and then paying that wide receiver $28 million around it or more than it. I think the big thing is if the price in the contract goes up, that 100% takes out the Steelers because Omar Khan has already been pretty steadfast. And we heard the last contract offer from the Steelers was under $28 million. And we were saying, well, if all you need to do is go up $1 million or $2 million to get this deal over the finish line, you do it because the contract has already been, or the trade has already been agreed to in principle. It's just a matter of, can you outbid the level that Aiyuk wants from San Francisco? If it's that close, then why not do it? Well, it seems like Omar Khan is pretty steadfast that he doesn't want to overpay. He doesn't want to go past certain lines. If another team gets into this, there's no way that's going to push him to do it more. It's just going to push him away from it and going to push him towards another receiver.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly where I stand too. Is it's not going to help anything. I think the harder San Francisco makes this on the Steelers, the more likely the Steelers are to pull out and say this is over. And quite frankly, I'm surprised that it hasn't happened yet. If it hasn't, we don't know for a fact that Omar Khan hasn't been like, yeah, we're good, pal. This is it. It's over. It's whatever. Who cares? We're going to wait it out a couple of days and maybe you make a phone call to us and we start talking again. But right now we're definitely on the outside looking in. There's a lot of people that'll question, why wouldn't you just trade Jahan Dotson to the San Francisco 49ers? I don't think I have a logical answer there outside of maybe the San Francisco 49ers wanted something a little bit more than Jahan Dotson. And I think Jahan Dotson's a great talent, but if you're talking Devontae Adams, names like that, it's hard to say Jahan Dotson's in the same, we'll replace Brandon Aiyuk with this guy. If option A is Devontae Adams, I don't think option B is a third year. Is Jahan Dotson his third year or second? Third year struggling wide receiver who maybe not works out for this team. I just don't think that's the way to go. If you're San Francisco, maybe that's how they're feeling, but also maybe Washington just didn't even think that way because we don't know. I don't cover the Washington Commanders and I haven't been that involved in that situation. I think it's approaching time to move on. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's not the best situation. It stinks if that's what does happen. But I think at some point you have to look at it and say, sorry, we did what we could, and it's time to move on, and it's time to figure some stuff out. I do want to talk about Stephen A. Smith and Mike Florio kind of having some very rough reactions to Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. And then obviously who needs to step up in this preseason game. But first, let's get a word out from our boys over at Game Time. Let's talk about Game Time. I could still taste the popcorn and the soda and smell the beer of my first Pittsburgh Steelers game. And yeah, the Jacksonville Jaguars might have won that day, but I will never forget how loud Heinz Field was and how rocking that stadium was on the North Shore. Game Time has this new feature called Game Time Picks that makes things like getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I have an upcoming concert in Cleveland the day after the Pittsburgh Steelers play against the Browns, and instead of sitting there clicking on every single section, I'm just going to use Game Time Picks. Let's talk about why it's so great. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. On top of that, you get all-in pricing. which means that you get the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. On top of that, you get seat views because nobody wants to buy some nosebleed seats for cheap and take a guess on whether you're staring at a pole or you just got the greatest deal in the entire venue. Plus, the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage means that your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code ALLSteelers for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code ALLSTEELERS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, low prices, guaranteed. Shout out our boys over at Game Time. All right, let's talk. Stephen A. Smith, Mike Florio both had some interesting, it's Stephen A. Smith, it's Mike Florio. Everything that comes out of their mouth is typically interesting, but they had some reactions to Justin Fields and Russell Wilson and where things currently stand. Let me ask you this, Nick, before I dive into their reactions. Would you, for one, say that Russell Wilson has quote unquote pissed you off to this point? And two, would you say the Pittsburgh Steelers are crazy to stick with Russell Wilson?
I wouldn't say that he's pissed me off. I don't know how a quarterback could piss me off in 21 snaps whenever he didn't have a capable offensive line. I think that would be a jump. Obviously, it's annoying that he missed the beginning of camp, but it's not his fault that he had a calf injury. So, no, he hasn't pissed me off to this point. And, at this juncture, we all knew what it was going to be if you listened to Mike Tomlin speak, if you knew kind of what was going on at camp, who was getting the first reps, when it started immediately. So no, I'm not surprised at all by what we've seen this week and what we've seen the last couple of weeks. And honestly, I think one good performance this weekend kind of shuts down a lot of this noise.
Yeah, I agree. Mike Florio and Stephen A. Smith, they don't agree. They disagree. Stephen A. Smith yesterday on ESPN's First Take went off, said, I'm going to say this on national television. Russell Wilson spoke right to him here. You're beginning to piss me off. Somebody's got to say it, and I'm going to say it. You stunk last year. You were paid $37.8 million to go away. The Denver Broncos are willing to eat nearly $38 million to get rid of you. And you're sitting there fighting for a starting job with Justin Fields. You ain't fighting for no starting job with Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or somebody. It's Justin Fields you're starting for a job with. And he is sitting there with some smile on his face talking about everybody just needs to relax. You ain't Aaron Rodgers. So we'll start with that one. Look I understand that his time in Denver ended a little bit rough and that Russell Wilson wasn't as beloved as maybe we want him to be coming to Pittsburgh. And there are some issues and some question marks, obviously. That comes with any quarterback who's 35 years old and goes to a new team. There's clearly a reason that your old team didn't want you, and there's clearly speculation about whether or not you're going to work out with your new team. But just like you said, it's so hard to say Russell Wilson has pissed anybody off. And at the same time, I don't understand how the Pittsburgh Steelers and their fan base and Stephen A. Smith and everybody else could sit around and say, we want something different out of Russell Wilson. I just have a hard time sitting here thinking, you want to know what Russ should do? He should be competing for a starting job and pissing everybody off by trashing his offense or saying how things are not going well or freaking out, for one reason or another. It just doesn't seem to make any sense in my eyes for Russell Wilson to cause drama at this juncture when he's a quarterback who's trying to escape the stigma of I'm weird and I cause weird issues. I don't know. In my eyes, Stephen A. Smith is a little bit aggressive, and that's who Stephen A. Smith is. We already know that. We've already known that. But it's hard to sit here and say that Russell Wilson, should go in a different direction than the one he's going in, because that's going to work out better. I just don't know what the other side of this is. Is Russell Wilson supposed to just come out here and freak out and tell everybody they suck? Probably not. And at the same time, is Russell Wilson supposed to come out here and say, we have a boatload of issues? I can't believe that we haven't fixed these issues. Probably not. If you were asking me, if he was doing this the other way around and you were asking me, how should Russell Wilson react? We'd be sitting here saying he should be cordial and say that things are going to be fine and keep a cool head and stay cool, calm, and collected. And that's what he's doing. And in my eyes, he's doing exactly what he should be doing because he's media trained, and that's fine. Now, Stephen A. Smith is obviously looking for us to react to this. That's why he does these things. But I don't know, man. I think at some point you just got to look at it and say Russell Wilson's going to be fine, and everything's going to be fine. And if it's not fine, the worst thing you can do is add to the drama, especially as a quarterback who's trying to escape the stigma of I cause drama. On the other side of that, Mike Florio, speaking on 93.7 The Fan, shout out our boys over at 93.7 The Fan, went on a little bit of a rant calling the Pittsburgh Steelers crazy if they go with Russell Wilson over Justin Fields. And it was for all the same reasons that we have said maybe Justin Fields offers a better option for the Steelers than Russell Wilson, and that is his ability to improvise, Jaylen Warren being hurt, the offensive line being garbage, and you having limited options for skilled players on offense. And to be totally honest, I agree with some of that, but I also 100% understand where the Steelers are coming from and where Mike Tomlin's decision is and has been with, we want a veteran quarterback who could come in here and compete for a Super Bowl. We don't want to take a risk. A risk would have been seeing what Kenny Pickett has. A risk would have been seeing what Mason Rudolph has. Russell Wilson is the least amount of risk the Pittsburgh Steelers could take this offseason and this season, and that is why he continues to be here. It's the same reason that Mike Tomlin listed him first during training camp, even when he wasn't there. It's the same reason that he remains in pole position. In Mike Tomlin's eyes, Russell Wilson is the least amount of risk with the most upside the Pittsburgh Steelers have as an option, and therefore he's going to stick with them. So let's start with Stephen A. Smith, and then I'll toss one over on Florio. Do you think that Russell Wilson should be freaking out and saying, oh, these suck, this is terrible, should not be smiling? He should never smile again, especially during the preseason, and just saying, hey, look, things are bad, we should keep them bad, instead of saying, just like Aaron Rodgers would, just like Tom Brady would, just like Peyton Manning would, just like all the greats would, I think we're going to be okay. It's a little bit early to freak out. Maybe let's keep it calm. Or do you think he should, not do that and say that his offense probably sucks?
I think Stephen A. Smith longs for week 1 to get here, because that's when all of this starts actually becoming a conversation. No quarterback, not any of the 32 starters, not any of the 32 backups, is going to overreact to a preseason game. And that is what it has been, a preseason game. I don't even need to go into the snap count again, because everybody knows that I've said it about 20 times this week to make a point. It's one preseason game. What is he supposed to do? Act like the sky is falling? No. He says things are going to be fine, because things are probably going to be fine based on the fact that it was a 1-game sample size in the preseason where he barely got any playing time.
Yes.
Things go wrong. That happens. That's what the preseason's for. That's what the Steelers are working on, is finding out what their weak spots are and how to address it. That's what Arthur Smith is looking at in this offense. What are the weak spots? Can he scheme away from them when the season starts? That's what this week is about. That's what last week is about. That's what 2 weeks ago was about against the Houston Texans. So no, it's not a bad thing that a human being is smiling while playing a children's game. That's never going to be something I get on somebody for doing.
Yes, that's as well put as you could possibly put it. Nobody in their right mind should be freaking out about Russell Wilson being calm about struggles in the preseason. And I understand that everybody's freaking out about struggles in the preseason, but you shouldn't be, because it's the preseason. So let's calm down. On the second act of that, are the Pittsburgh Steelers crazy to not roll with Justin Fields, or do you understand Mike Tomlin's side of these things with Russ is the safest option, and therefore we're rolling with the safest option?
I'll give Florio credit. The one thing he said that was right is if the line is going to be this bad, Fields
Yeah.
probably does give you a better opportunity, but the line's not going to be that bad, right? This is a lot of things went wrong for the Steelers offensive line. Herbig goes down for the year. Fautanu is out for the preseason. Broderick Jones is on the wrong side. Plus he's dealing with something on his right elbow, which does not help a right tackle at all. When everything starts to mesh, when everything starts to come together, the offensive line is going to be better. And at that point, it is better to have Russell Wilson in there because he's not going to have to run for his life. I have confidence that the offensive line is going to get better from last week, substantially this week. And I think it's just going to continue to get better through the season as it has the last 2 years. And with that in mind, I still think Russell Wilson is the guy to be behind the Steelers offensive line right now. I do like Justin Fields a lot, though. And I do think that there should be a future with Justin Fields in Pittsburgh. But as of right now, for what the Steelers are looking for, it's Russell Wilson's team. And I understand that if the line's going to continue to be bad, Fields might give him a better chance, but I just don't think the line's going to continue to be that bad.
No, I agree. I think Russ is the guy there. And I like that you said, I think Justin should have a future in Pittsburgh because I think he should. I think even if you draft a quarterback next year, Justin should be the guy that comes in here with an opportunity to compete with that first round pick or that second round pick or another veteran and get an opportunity because Justin's going to be cheap. Let's be honest. If Justin Fields doesn't play this season, nobody's signing him for $10 million next year. They might sign him for $5 million, but the Steelers should sign him for $5 million. And see if he could turn into something with a better opportunity. But I agree. Stephen A. Smith and Mike Florio are all about the reactions, and they got us. They got us with some good ones. But I think where we stand right now, I'm good. All right. Before we dive into questions, let's talk about players who need to impress in this final preseason game. Players who have a ton on the line in this final preseason game. And that is, I have a long list. Do you have any?
I have a couple here. I think Beanie Bishop is the obvious one. He's a guy that when he missed last week's game, you knew it all came down to this week, how he performed in practice, how he responded to being injured or dealing with an injury, and how he's able to come out here and perform against the Detroit Lions team who, if they start their starters, and if he goes up against a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're really going to get that thrown into the fire. Can he hold up against some of the best in this league at that position? Outside of that, I'm looking at two other guys, Corey Trice and Scotty Miller on either side of the ball. Trice needs to prove that, hey, I can be this number 3. It might not be a finished product right now, which nobody expects him to be, but I can hold down the fort on the outside if need be. That I have progressed tremendously from the beginning of training camp, where I hadn't seen very many live reps before coming back, to now where I've gotten my feet underneath me, and then Scotty Miller on the other side for obvious reasons. I mean, it is a very interesting wide receiver room right now, and it might be in flux over the next 2 weeks. Scotty Miller, this is the last chance for him to really make a case for himself to stick around whenever all of those moves end up happening.
Yeah, those are two I had on my list. They're two massive ones. And I think Scotty Miller has made a name for himself. I think he's snuck his way into some consideration. And if Brandon Aiyuk isn't going to work out in Pittsburgh, maybe Scotty Miller's got a shot. He's looked good in the preseason. And at first you were just trying to ignore it. Now where we're at, it's harder to ignore it. So I don't think that you could, but I agree. I think Scotty Miller is a big one. I got a couple of names. I'll go the other side of Beanie Bishop here. Thomas Graham. I think Thomas Graham has an opportunity to sneak his way onto this roster, potentially surpass Beanie Bishop. He looked decent during training camp, impressive at times, and didn't look bad in the preseason game last week. So maybe, just maybe, he gets an opportunity to be the guy this week and showcase that he could do some things. I expect Beanie Bishop to start, but I think Thomas Graham has an opportunity to be an Elijah Riley and just kind of earn his place when maybe nobody saw it coming that he should earn that place. Corey Trice, did you say Corey Trice?
Yep.
Corey Trice, like you said, got to prove it on the outside. If not, you got to go outside. You got to go find somebody else. But I think he's got the best opportunity here. On the other side of the ball, I got a couple of big names. By big names, I mean big guys. Michael Pruitt, who impressive during training camp, impressive during the first preseason game, not impressive during the second preseason game, has somewhat fallen off. Need that to return to where it was, because I think he could play fullback. I think he could play special teams. I think he could play tight end. I think he's a massive body who could block. you want Michael Pruitt to be on this roster if you're the Steelers. I think he works out very well in Arthur Smith's offense and the way that the Steelers are trying to do things. Broderick Jones and Spencer Anderson are my two offensive linemen for two different reasons. Broderick Jones he's got to quiet some noise because nobody, not Justin Fields, not Russell Wilson, not Mike Tomlin, not Brandon Aiyuk, has more noise around him right now than Broderick Jones. And if you're the Steelers, you're hoping that noise goes away. Broderick's got to quiet that noise. He's got an opportunity here to do so. He's got to take advantage of it. On the other side of that, Spencer Anderson, probably going to play some center, needs to prove I could be the swing center, needs to prove I could be the backup. I'm the guy this year. You could rely on me 100%. I could be a guard and a center if you need me to be, no questions asked. Because, I think that's the Steelers' best option, but I don't think the Steelers are 100% sold on that option. This is a good opportunity for Spencer Anderson. And then to finish off this list is Van Jefferson, because I also had Scotty Miller. I also had Beanie Bishop. But Van Jefferson got us a little bit excited in that first preseason game, got us excited during training camp, did nothing last week. And I get it. Nobody on offense did anything last week, but do something, turn this into your game. Turn this into, you can't stop Van Jefferson. He could be the guy. Quiet the pressure for Brandon Aiyuk or for another trade. This is a massive game. This could decide if he's your 2 or your 3 heading into the season. I think he's got an opportunity to shut that down. That would be my list. Thomas Graham, Beanie Bishop, Van Jefferson, Corey Trice, Michael Pruitt, Scotty Miller, Broderick Jones, and Spencer Anderson.
Yeah, the Broderick Jones one is one I thought about too. Obviously, he's not going to lose his position on the team. The question being, where does he end up playing? Does Troy Fautanu get healthy by week 1? Does it push him over to the left? And does that cure all that ails him? That's a big question mark, but he does need to quiet the noise around him. Obviously, when you look at what he's gone through this year so far, it's not been a pretty, situation for Broderick Jones. But I think this is an opportunity, especially going up, like you mentioned, against Aiden Hutchinson, for him to win a couple reps, show people, hey, last week was a fluke. It was a bad week. He's learning to play with that injury. From what it sounds like when he talked, it's not an injury that's going to kind of go away anytime soon. So he's learning to play through that injury. And I think with that, you're going to see him progress. But Thomas Graham is the interesting one. I didn't think about, who was behind Beanie Bishop, just that Beanie Bishop needed to perform in order to keep that starting role. But Thomas Graham's a name that, we talked about him a lot during, when I was up there on August 6th. There were a lot of people that were mentioning Thomas Graham. So going to keep my eye out for him tomorrow. And obviously will be very interesting to see if he's able to, as Elijah Riley and Chandon Sullivan did last year, make a name for himself late in the preseason.
Yeah. It's a good opportunity. It's an exciting game. I think there's when this was happening, when we started the preseason, I looked at it and said, all right, by Detroit, things will be so easy. Like I was explaining to the newcomers with the website and everything, like, yeah, by the 24th, things are so calm. It's good. We'll use it as a trial run for the regular season, give everybody a little opportunity to do other things. As we sit here today, it's like, oh, it's not. It's way more intense than we thought it was going to be. Things are popping, and we'll see what happens. It's a massive game on Sunday. Obviously, there's plenty to come from it, and plenty more. Quarterback decision, roster decisions, even if the quarterback decision's already made, and much more, including should the Steelers pursue Brandon Aiyuk, or can we put that to rest finally because people finally stepped up. All right, that's all I got on my agenda today. We'll dive into Saturday. I know we got a couple of questions. If you guys have more of them, toss them in the chat. We'll answer all of them before we head out of here. What do we got?
Let's start with Walter Grunden, who asks, is Julio Jones washed or is he just a high price? What are your thoughts on potentially going after veteran Julio Jones?
I think it might be a little bit of both. I don't think Julio Jones is a number 2 in this NFL. I think he's more of a number 4, a good number 4, but a number 4, a guy who could come in here, limited reps and contribute and probably catch some touchdowns and do what he needs to do. But I don't think he's got the juice left in him at this point in his career. And he's probably going to cost about $2-3 million. And, you could find some younger options for $2-3 million to take a shot on. So I would say a little bit of both.
Let's move over to DJ Thomas, going over to the Washington Commanders, re-entering the Brandon Aiyuk negotiations, saying, kind of wondering if the Commanders will trade for Luke McCaffrey. to the 49ers so the brothers can play on offense together. Maybe that gets the BA trade done with some draft picks.
That would be cool. That would be cool. I'd be all about Luke McCaffrey. I think Luke McCaffrey's a stud and was a little bit overlooked coming out of college. But I don't know. I don't have any insight in Washington. The way we sit here right now is I think they might have cleared a roster spot up, and Mike Silver believes that it's an opportunity for Washington to make a move for Brandon Aiyuk. I don't know. I don't know what would get the job done. I don't know what wouldn't get the job done. I have a hard time believing a rookie is going to get the job done. You're going to need a little bit more, but maybe. I do think Washington becomes a threat to the Steelers, though.
Let's move over to Kevin, who wants to know, do you think Omar has a plan for filling all the holes on the Steelers roster?
I think he's got a plan for most of them. I don't think you could do anything about the offensive line. You're going to hope that it works out, and I think it will, but you're going to hope for the best. I don't think that there are a ton of options out there for, let's say, wide receiver right now, but I think options will emerge, and Omar will try to get something done. And then corner, they're going to wait on Beanie, and they're going to wait on Thomas Graham, and they're going to wait on Corey Trice, and they're going to make a decision on Tuesday about how they view that position and whether or not they could go out and get somebody else. So I would say that they are planning to fill all holes they need to fill, but they're going to use this weekend as one last opportunity to see how much or how many holes they need to actually address.
Let's go to Broderick Wallace, who wants to know, does Jack Coletto make the practice squad again?
Yeah, I think so. I believe so. I believe you keep a fullback on the practice squad just in case a guy like Connor Hayward or Michael Pruitt goes down. I also would expect a LaMichael Perrine if he passes through waivers, or Jonathan Ward if he passes through waivers, to make the practice squad as well if they don't make the active roster. But yeah, I think Jack Coletto makes the practice squad.
Bert Butler wants to know, why does it feel like we're always just an injury or two away from things being a disaster? Your thoughts, and how can it get fixed, in your opinion?
I mean, I don't think it could get fixed. You could add more depth, but it's hard to replace TJ Watt. It's hard to replace Cam Hayward. It's hard to replace Minkah Fitzpatrick. And that would be the case with any team. Patrick Mahomes goes down, the Kansas City Chiefs are in trouble. Brock Purdy goes down, the San Francisco 49ers are in trouble. Like there are that exception for every team that it's probably over if that one player goes down. In Pittsburgh, it's not a quarterback. It's your outside linebacker, your safety, and your defensive tackle. But I just don't think you could fix it. I think you just have to hope for the best and believe it's part of the game.
Let's go over to Caleb's question, which is, any update on Jaylen Warren? Will we have him back anytime soon?
Yeah, he said yesterday that he's playing week 1. He plans to play week 1. So that's right from the horse's mouth there, and you got to believe it. He's been dressed for practice. I don't know how much he's been doing. I don't think I'm allowed to report how much he's been doing, but if he says he's ready for week 1, I would take his word for it.
Let's jump down to Potato Salad, who checks in, and we appreciate you as always. Says, how we doing today, boys? Best pizza in the Berg. This is a touchy subject for Noah, so I'll let you go first.
It is. Me and Nick disagree a little bit. Okay, Giovanni's is my go-to, but it's not typical pizza. I'm gonna be honest. Pittsburgh doesn't have good pizza, man. Pittsburgh does not have good pizza. I know everybody wants it, but they don't have good pizza. Rockaway Pizza, who's actually moving to Regent Square, so pumped about that, would be a strong number 2 for me. But I know Nick's got other ones. He grew up here and he thinks Pittsburgh has good pizza because he hasn't been to the east side of Pennsylvania yet.
Listen, you're somebody who cannot move your own desire for pizza out of the way to judge good pizza. Pittsburgh has football pizza. Why? Because it's a football town. It doesn't have thin sliced New Haven style pizza. I understand that's your favorite. You like thin and crispy. That's not what Pittsburgh is. It is football pizza. And for what football pizza is, there's a lot of good ones in Pittsburgh. My favorite is Milano's downtown on 5th, across from the Penguins Arena. There's also one, I believe, on 6th Avenue down by Redbeard's. So that's my favorite. Giovanni's is also very good as well. And then if I'm going to give one just simply because I'm biased, that's Genoa over by Point Park, just because that's where I went
all
throughout
come
college.
on. No, look at Genoa's. Genoa's is a staple. I get it. I've had Genoa's pizza more than any pizza in Pittsburgh.
It was cheap, and that's why. So I ate it
but
so
it
much.
wasn't good.
It's an emotional favorite.
It's an emotional favorite. I agree with that, but it is not good pizza. It is not. And don't get me wrong. I would go if somebody was like, yo, you want to go to Genoa's? I'm pumped to go to Genoa's. You know, it brings you back to every great memory you had. But at the same time, not good pizza. Nah, I'm just being truthful, not good pizza.
Well, since we're on the topic of Pittsburgh food, Jay Chapp says, heading to Pittsburgh this year, is Permane Brothers worth the hype?
Yes, but you have to go to the right ones. You have to go to the Strip District or Market Square. Those are the best two. I would go to the Strip. You know, that's the original, but you're going to have to wait in a line most likely. Market Square, you won't have to wait in a line. Just as good, but not the original. Those would be my two. Definitely worth the hype. Like, you got to go to Permane's. You can't not go to Permane's. You know, if you've never been here and you want to check it out, check it out.
Just expect to get some daggers thrown at you eye-wise if you ask for the coleslaw on the side. That's you're gonna get a lot of looks from the, and don't expect it not to happen, because it'll happen everywhere you go, no matter the location.
My brother and his friend were in what we were saying on Tuesday, and we went to Permane's and he asked for the fries on the side, and I said, dude, just order the fries. Just order an extra thing of fries. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, why would you ask that? And he's like, dude, I just want to dip the fries in some ketchup. I'm like, you are a disgrace to Permane's right now. I'm surprised we didn't get kicked out.
I was where I was going to go with it, but let's move over back to football questions here and go to Jeremy Quintana, who asks, is it me or is everyone so worried about the offense they're completely ignoring how good the Steelers defense is going to be?
No, I don't think so. I think the Steelers defense is going to be great. And that's why people need to calm down about the struggles right now, because the Steelers defense is going to be great. And if you could figure out the offense, the Steelers are going to be great. But that being said, you got to have the ability to go beat a Patrick Mahomes in a 2-minute drive. You got to have the ability to keep up with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow if they go off in a game. Your defense can't do everything. And on top of that, we've seen what happens with a great defense and a really bad offense over the last 2-3 years. Your defense falls apart. It starts to get tired. It can't hold up. Injuries happen. It's not good to have a dominant defense and absolutely no offense. You got to have something, otherwise you're just wear and tear in your defense to the point where they're going to give up.
Let's go over to Vibin with the Dogs, who says, should we bring back Patrick Peterson? And then for wide receiver, how about you call Indy for a guy like Alec Pierce?
We've talked about Alec Pierce before, I believe. Good name, probably a reliable number 3, if you want to call him. Could work on the outside and be another Van Jefferson, but I don't think he moves the needle more than Van Jefferson already does. And I don't think he surpasses Calvin Austin. So an option, and I think one that could emerge in the next couple of days. That's where I see the Steelers kind of going, is that middle of the tier, find somebody else who has some more upside and maybe make a phone call come roster cuts. Alec Pierce could be a name. Patrick Peterson, I'd call him. I'd call him. I'd call Kella Witherspoon. I'd call Shannon Sullivan. I'd call Trayvon Mullen. I'd call anybody who's out there who could start immediately, no questions asked, and fill a role for the Steelers, because that's what you're looking for right now. A really reliable backup and somebody who could play the slot.
Let's jump over to Prop God. Appreciate you as always. He asks, what do you think the best offensive scheme / offensive coordinator to bring out the best in Justin Fields consistently is? Games like last week wreck my brain after seeing performances like he had against Atlanta in the snow last year.
Look, we have to get over the games like last week nonsense, because I understand that the offense was bad, but it was not Justin Fields. It was not Russell Wilson. And to a degree, it was not Arthur Smith. It was the offensive line. The offensive line was so bad that nothing else could happen at all. And you fix the offensive line, you fix a lot of these things. I think Arthur Smith's offense works very well for Justin Fields. Obviously, there's better offensive coordinators. You could go in a Kyle Shanahan's offense, and I think that would be electric. I think Miami's offense would be nuts with Justin Fields. But I think Arthur Smith's offense works well for what Justin's capable of doing. And I think that Arthur Smith wants to implement those running quarterback plays and make sure that he could utilize Justin Fields and make things easier for him. I think that Arthur Smith works well. I think last week the issue was the offensive line and how bad they looked. And I don't think they're going to look bad all season. I think they look bad in that game and a little bit of the game before that, but just that game. And I think that was the reason we struggled. I don't look at this as Arthur Smith's a bad offensive coordinator and he can't work with Justin Fields. I think he'd work very well with Justin Fields. The only reason Justin isn't the guy right now is because Russ is easier to look to and say there are going to be less issues.
Vincent wants to know, how do you think we pan out in the last half of the season this year with all of those division games coming after the bye week?
It's I hope they pan out well. We'll see. It's a wait and see situation. I would expect them to do better than we anticipate because that seems to always be the case where the Steelers have games that it's looking glim. It's tough. It's a bad situation. Pittsburgh pulls through. So I would expect better than we expect, but where we stand, I think it's a wait and see.
Let's go to J Chap's Snack Reviews. Says, are they downplaying the injury to Roman Wilson?
No, it's an ankle sprain. I mean, it's the thing with the things with ankle sprains is that it's you look at it and just say it could heal tomorrow, it could heal in a week, it could heal in a year. You just don't know. I mean, ankle sprains are the worst injuries because you just don't have a real timeline for them. Ray Fittipaldo says he could start the season on IR. Some people are saying he could start the season back in week 1. Who knows? But for right now, it's a wait and see. I don't think they're downplaying it. I think it's just hard to really guess with an ankle sprain.
Gunnar Davis says, love the show, guys. Me and my daughter are always watching. Noah, you said Pops has a restaurant yesterday. What's the menu looking like?
So he's got 2 of them, 3 of them now. They're all kind of different. One of them's like bar food. It's the go-to. It's called the Boathouse up in like White Pine-ish, like Lake Wallenpaupack area. The other one's called the Fairview Cafe. I'm all about the Fairview Cafe. Fine dining, casual fine dining. So show up there in jeans and a nice shirt and have a good steak. It's delicious. You could sit out on the deck. It's pretty nice. Always live music. That's my go-to. It used to be my go-to to take dates, first date, impress them a little bit, and then I'd tell them at the end to be like, oh, so my dad actually owns this place. So it's nice.
Let's go to Joe Dilly, who says, what's up, guys? Was wondering if bringing back Akello Witherspoon or Chandon Sullivan would be a strong move for the Steelers' depth.
Yeah. I've been pushing those 2 strong for the past couple of weeks now. I think both of them deserve an opportunity. I think where the Steelers stand right now, why not? Chandon Sullivan was reliable in the slot last year. Didn't think he played bad. Why not give him a call? And Akello, I think the Steelers loved Akello, so give Akello a call. I think he'd be best off the bench as that third guy, and he's probably cheap.
Let's go over to the next question, which is, do you think the Brandon Aiyuk trade rumors amp up this weekend?
Yes. Yeah, they're going to go off. By Tuesday, they're going to be they're going to try to be making the most out of this situation come Tuesday. Like, it's going to be crazy how many reports are going to be out there and how much is going to be floating around. To be honest, we're going to sift through it all and try to keep this as level-headed as possible. But where we stand right now, I would expect it to be crazy all weekend long.
Walter wants to know who in this next draft, quarterback-wise, is there if the Steelers would have to go get one?
I mean, there's Carson Beck's my guy. Shadur Sanders is going to be great, although Deion Sanders' son makes it rough. There's the dude out of LSU that I can never remember his name. There's Quinn Ewers, who I'm a fan of Quinn Ewers. I think that he's going to be a good quarterback. Kind of gives me like Bo Nix vibes. If people are going to think he sucks and maybe he's pretty all right. I think that might be it in the first round, but there's going to be a couple.
Did you say Carson Beck?
Yeah, of course. He's my number 1.
I didn't hear it, but I feel like you probably would have had to say it.
Yeah, he's my dude.
Let's go over to Mike Long. Appreciate you as always. Says, what would it take for Russell Wilson to lose this job?
Yeah, he'd have to be really bad for a prolonged period of time. Like it would have to be weeks on weeks of him just really, really, really struggling, or an injury happen, and Justin Fields would just have to come out and just ball out. But I don't think it's a 1 week looking bad, a 2 week looking bad. It'd have to be 4 or 5 weeks of Russ really isn't the guy, and it's very clear he's not the guy for the Steelers to actually pull the plug on him.
Gunnar Davis says, do we see Cordero Patterson getting any returns in this game?
I don't, because Mike Tomlin said it yesterday, I'm not worried about Cordero Patterson getting any return reps. And I said, why? Why? Why are we not worried about it? Like, we should be worried about it. But I would guess no. The way I look at it is they're going to rock John Rice Plumlee and Jonathan Ward if he plays out there, and just continue as they were. They're just hoping for the best of John Rice Plumlee, man. Let him get one, and hopefully he does something.
Pittsburgh Steelers fan 8 says, I'm a big special teams guy and think Cam Johnston looks really good, like Pro Bowl good. Do you agree?
Yes. I mean, he would have set an NFL record if that was a regular season game last Saturday for longest punt yards or average punt yards. He looks phenomenal. I mean, I'm a big fan of a punter who's going to mess somebody up on the sideline and get chippy. On top of that, having a boot of a leg, I'm all about him. And he seems like a great dude. So I'm a big fan of Cameron Johnston, and I think he's going to be great for the Steelers.
And let's finish it off with DJ Thomas. For all those that didn't hear earlier what the schedule is going to be, wants to know, does All Steelers Talk have a set live schedule for the regular season?
Yes. So we have a soft schedule right now. Right now, our schedule starting next week will be Mondays and Fridays. We're going to kick it off at about 9 a.m., 9:30, depending on, we'll always have it scheduled ahead of time, but about 9:30, just depending on the morning flow and if news breaks, so on and so forth. That'll allow us to travel to and from games so we don't get interrupted or have to push something super late, and we can keep it on a schedule, because Mondays I'll be traveling back from games. Fridays I'll be traveling sometimes 2 games. So it'll just allow things to be smoother. Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, we're going to go in the afternoon. We're shooting for 3:30. That's our plan. Now, the regular season schedule has not been released yet to the media for their practice schedule and so on and so forth. So we might have to make adjustments. We will see how that works. Maybe it's 4:00. We'll try to figure it out for you guys. We will have something set in stone by week 1 to make sure everybody knows exactly what's going on. But next week, plan for Mondays and Fridays, or Monday and Friday, 9 to 9:30, and Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 3:30.
That's a wrap for today, then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. And as always, please find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back on Monday. I might be around Sunday afternoon for a little bit of a recap, but I'll keep you guys posted on that one. If not, you'll hear from us Monday morning. Enjoy another beautiful weekend in the Berg.